Can you introduce yourself and your career role into where you are today?
Yeah, my name's Anne Jones and I work in adult mental health for the NHS.
What made you get involved in the Seven Sisters campaign?
Well, I didn't exactly get involved, it got involved with me.
Right.
Because I live in the Seven Sisters, and when you discover that somebody wants to demolish your home, then it affects you, and that's when the campaign was started by my late partner, Robin Parker.
When did you move into the Seven Sisters?
I've been there around kind of 20 years-ish. I kind of moved in with Robin when we got together.
And you mentioned Robin Parker was the ex-mayor of Rochdale as well.
Yeah, he was mayor in 2008, 2009, and I was mayoress as well. It was a wonderful year.
So when did this campaign actually start and why did it start?
The campaign itself actually started in 2017, but there'd been kind of machinations before that. Kind of in late 2016, I'd seen the odd headline in the Rochdale Observer about College Bank, the Seven Sisters, and saying there was potential for them to be demolished or regenerated or whatever. And because I knew nothing about it, I just thought this is sensational journalism, and I didn't keep that edition of the paper. And it was kind of only in the very early in 2017, we got a little A5 leaflet, just an A5 leaflet through the door, with offering a series of consultations about 3 options that they were considering doing. I do call them consultations now, and there were 3. Well, there were 2 consultation workshops, and the third one is what I call the big reveal, which was in June 2017, when it was announced after asking people in the other workshops what they would like, and there were architects there, and you could have all-weather balconies. Is that something you'd like? Yes, of course people would like an all-weather balcony. But on this particular day in June 2017, it was announced that they were intending to demolish the Big 4, which is Mitchell Hay, Dunkirk Rise, Tentercroft and Town Mill Brow. Well, living in one of the Big 4, Robin, my partner, wasn't very happy. I wasn't very happy. Other people were not very happy. It was a very stressful time, and that's where the kind of campaign began seriously. At that point, we had been kind of we had started campaigning before that because we had a sense of what was going on. That this was the way that.
But in 2017, in June, you thought this is actually going to happen. We need to do something.
This is we were. I think we were already in the process of getting a petition together, and July of that year, Robin presented the petition to full council, and he lots of residents from the Seven Sisters were in the gallery in the town hall, and council chamber down below, and he got a round of applause from across the floor from all the parties in the council chamber. But the council don't actually have any power or jurisdiction because it's a housing association that wanted to do this, and the stock had been kind of handed over to the housing association.
So which housing association is it?
Rochdale Borough-wide Housing. Initially they were an arm's length organisation managing the housing stock for the council, and then the stock was kind of formally handed over.
How many people, tenants, would you say lived in the Seven Sisters flat when it was at its peak prior to all this?
There's approximately 750 properties. I never know the exact number, because there are some kind of penthouses on some of the blocks. But it's about 750 properties, and at that time there was what you would refer to as like the standard number of voids. because there's always voids on an estate, and that's a natural process. So that was it was full. The estate was pretty much full.
I believe many tenants moved out approximately 8 years ago. What did say to these tenants to make them move out?
It's been an ongoing process. Obviously, in 2017, people were told that they intended to demolish the Big Four. So people were, I think, responding to kind of different things. Also, people have to be given kind of a statutory housing loss payment, and I don't know whether it was 6,000 at the time or 7,000. Now it's 8,100 currently. And that's the minimum, I think. I'm not an expert in these matters, but I think that's the minimum that people should be given if they're to lose their homes. And for some people, you might say, with chaotic lifestyles, if you will, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. For people who lived on the estate for decades, literally decades, 20, 30, 40 odd years, then this is really their home that you're talking about. And something like £6,000, £7,000 or £8,000 is not full compensation for having built up that home, maybe lived with family there, you've got memories there, and moving house is one of the most stressful things that you can do. That's acknowledged. So some people, it suited them to move. That's fine. And some people were kind of, I suppose, more frightened because in 2019, I think it was, we were issued with initial demolition notices, and I think that was possibly a trigger for people going as well, because that was very frightening. I remember getting a phone call at work one day, and Robin had just received the initial demolition notice, and it really upset him. So I actually came home from work because it was really distressing. But people didn't understand that didn't mean that they were coming down immediately. But I think they believed it. They got this piece of paper that was saying an initial demolition notice. Therefore, that probably triggered some people to leave. So it's been an ongoing drip.
So you mentioned that it started quite a while ago. Now, the Rochdale Council handed this over to Rochdale Borough-wide Housing. When they did this, how has this affected the plans that were in place with the council when the move went over to Rochdale Borough Housing?
Well, I wasn't on the estate when it was owned and managed by the council itself. But what we would say to you now is that the estate has been experiencing a prolonged period of managed decline. I know the Housing Association would deny that, but it's something that you probably don't pick up on immediately, because it's a subtle thing that starts to happen over time, and then you realise things are not being done or happening, and I think if the housing stock was handed over in 2012 or whatever it was, and then there were already thoughts in late 2016 that they wanted to maybe demolish or regenerate or whatever, then those plans and thoughts and ideas were obviously being mooted and discussed prior to that. So I think pretty soon after the stock was handed over, looking at the evidence.
Okay. What is the Save the Seven Sisters campaign? How many members does this have, and how can other people get involved?
Well, as they say, it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's the Save the Seven Sisters campaign. Save the Seven Sisters is the kind of local name for College Bank estate, and some people call it the town flats. So we have it can be a bit confusing, but we are College Bank support group, and the Save the Seven Sisters campaign is our campaign to save the Seven Sisters from demolition. We're fighting for refurbishment. Anybody who supports our aims,
Yeah.
you know, we welcome them,
Yeah.
but it's not a membership,
Right.
if you will. So we have people who live on the estate, who are supporters of the campaign, and we have people from outside, and these people might be professionals, or, you know, we do have some kind of professionals who do support and have been with us long term, so they don't necessarily live on the estate, but they're there and they're very much supporting us.
The Residents Group and Greater Manchester Tenants Union commissioned a plan and design a plan to renovate the flats. What has come of this?
A huge support for us is Greater Manchester Tenants Union, and you know, we owe them a lot because they have expertise in many areas, and they support us in many ways, and with knowledge and skills and human resources and whatnot. So yes, and one of the things they've done is found funding to commission Unit 38, who are a firm of social architects, to come and meet with residents. And we talked to the architects about what we'd like to see on the estate, how we'd like to see our homes, and the difference between speaking to Unit 38 architects and the other architects that we've met that have been working for RBH. RBH are their client. With Unit 38, we, the residents, are their client.
So you feel you've got more of a say with them?
We've got more of a say. We've got more of a say in the design of what we'd like to see. But then the issue is then getting those plans and those ideas across to the movers and shakers that have got the money. We can't say, oh yes, we like your plans, Unit 38, yes, go ahead and do that. We've got to get buy-in for those plans.
Yeah. What are the surveys that Rochdale Borough Housing carried out, and were these shared with the tenants or the wider community?
More recently, RBH have commissioned some more structural surveys, and they've not even sort of going back to the beginning. We don't think they've done any sort of full structural surveys, but more recently they have done.
Right.
And now they've got those surveys, they don't seem to want to share them with anybody. They're quite happy to kind of give a summary or a report, but not to actually show the surveys, that somebody who's got the skills and knowledge can look at them and they're using those surveys to say, well, we've got these surveys now and it's suggesting that there's things needing doing, and it means that they're encouraging people to believe that the flats are not safe.
Right. Okay.
That's what they're encouraging people to believe.
Yes, that was
from these surveys that are not being
So that was
shown.
going to be my next question. Would you say the flats are beyond repair and need demolishing?
No, there's a lot of stuff that needs doing, and they've suffered from lack of maintenance and cyclical repairs for years, because there's been no investment. And ordinarily you would invest in property. If the roof needed fixing, you'd fix the roof. You wouldn't demolish it. You'd say, oh, there's need to do something with that roof. And but these issues haven't been being addressed. But now that lends them to say, well, there's issues with water and electrics. Well, yes, of course there are. Everybody's home needs rewiring after a certain period of time.
What is the Awaab law?
Sadly, in 2020, there was a little 2-year-old boy who passed away. He lived on an estate in Rochdale, not our estate, a different estate. And his home was riddled with damp and mould, and his Dad, as I understand it, was complaining to RBH to try and get this addressed, even before little Awaab came along. But it wasn't addressed, certainly not satisfactorily, and the state of the property was very bad, and Awaab became very ill from inhaling the spores from the mould in the home, and sadly passed away in 2020. And Awaab's law has resulted from a campaign in that the law outlines timeframes by which social landlords should act when they're alerted to any conditions of damp or mould in a property. And I can't tell you those timeframes off the top of my head, but if it's an emergency situation, they have to respond immediately. If it's serious, they've got a little bit more time, but there are set timeframes in which they should be responding. If they need to move people out of their properties while things are addressed, then they should be doing that at their expense and keeping the tenants up to speed with exactly what is going on, what the situation is, what's being done, and what the time frames are for addressing it and getting you back in your home and all that kind of thing. And if those criteria are not adhered to, then there's redress for tenants to take action.
Who is on the task force decision-making stakeholders? I believe Andy Burnham, the local MP, are on the task force.
So the task force is something that, as a campaign, we were hoping to see, and it's been formally convened by Andy Burnham. I can't tell you exactly who is on it. There's quite a number of people on it. In the main, RBH are on it, of course. Andy Burnham, his office, Greater Manchester Combined Authority, Rochdale MP, Paul Waugh, and our local council are very much involved in it as well. And there are other people involved there, and I've not named everybody. And I think it's got more remits than finding funding for refurbishment of College Bank alone. I think it's kind of looking at the kind of broader picture of Rochdale, central Rochdale. So the task force was set up to find funds for College Bank for refurbishment, and also look at kind of wider aspects of the central Rochdale, as far as I understand it. So also on the task force is the chair of our campaign, Mark Slater, and he has a very strong input into the campaign, and he's our advocate, and talks about the community plan to the task force members. So although the task force is kind of working in favour of the Seven Sisters flats, and we've had motions passed in our local council, Rochdale Council, saying they were against demolition, the sticking point seems to be RBH, because it feels like that they don't want to find a resolution for refurbishment. Right. So that's making things difficult to move forward. But we don't, I mean, the meetings take place behind closed doors, so, you know, I'm not a party to anything that's said in those meetings, or any minutes or anything like that. So there's no full transparency there.
With the tenants that you had before, you were saying it's 750 flats approximately, and now it's because people have moved out. And that's why RBH are not listening. They're planning of demolishing them because you've not got a stronger voice.
I think it's having a detrimental effect on the estate, physically.
Right.
I mean, there's less people living in the buildings, so the buildings are getting colder. So then, and heating's very expensive, so there are people there now who kind of I'm feeling really, really cold. I can't stand another winter like this. So that's a factor that's encouraging people to go to RBH and say, yes, I'll move out, find me somewhere. Our case for the estate is as strong as ever. While they're moving people off the estate, they're having to move them into other properties. But the last figure we heard was there are around 22,000 people on the waiting list for Rochdale. And that's 22,000 people, so that's, I don't know, guesstimate, something around 10,000 applications. And you've got over 500 properties sat there today, empty, which could be homes for people. They are homes. And it's an injustice, it's a housing injustice. And that's one of the reasons that certainly I am continuing to fight, because it is housing injustice.
What would you like to happen moving forward?
So, when College Bank was built, it was a sought-after place to live, and the properties are quite spacious, you know, and we've got wonderful views, and it could be like, yes, we need modernising, but it could be like that again, and we are fighting for the refurbishment, for that estate to once again become a thriving community of properties that people want to live in. Maybe we can have those all-weather balconies. You know, that's something that we aspire to, and that people, rather than College Bank having the bad rep that it's developed, and you do get people saying, oh, drop them, but they don't know the situation. You know, it could be, and the chief executive at RBH did actually say, estate was refurbished, then it could be an exemplar project, and it could be a nationwide exemplar project. And it's difficult for us to understand why that cannot be, but that's what we're fighting for, and that's why we're not going away.
What would you like to say to the Rochdale community?
We're not just fighting for our own home. It is a housing injustice, and there's a lot of housing injustice throughout the country. And if we get this estate, as I've said, there's about 22,000 people on the waiting list. We've got 500 homes sat there empty today. If we can get this estate refurbished, then it may just be one of your friends, neighbours, or even yourself that will benefit from this campaign win.
You know, looking from the community point of view, there's two landmarks that stand out in Rochdale. Yeah. The town hall and the infamous Seven Sisters. Yeah. I mean, everywhere you look, although most of it's negative media coverage, the Seven Sisters seem to be on there for the wrong reasons.
That's very true. It doesn't matter what the news item is. Yeah. It's the Seven Sisters. Yes. You can have nothing to do with the Seven Sisters, but because people recognise that as Rochdale, that's what you see. Yeah. So, you know, your campaign is, just to make it clear, is for all the Seven Sisters, 7 flats, to get refurbished, not just the 4 as you mentioned before. The entire estate. Yes. The entire estate. Yeah, and like you said, it'll bring a lot of homes to a lot of people in Rochdale that are waiting as well. I mean, originally it was about demolishing the big 4, but I think that's now I think it's about demolishing them all. Right. And I think it always was about demolishing them all, to be honest. And any plans that they were only kind of vague plans, but when they were talking about demolishing the big 4, there was only ever talk of replacing with 120 lower rise, but they would have demolished about 480 properties. Yeah. So that would be an immediate deficit of 360. Yeah.
So, Anne, what's the current situation with the tenants at the Seven Sisters?
If we go back to October last year, out of the blue, we all received letters on our doormats from RBH saying, and it was related to the surveys, the structural surveys that had been done, and they were saying that the surveys were suggesting that the buildings were unsafe and that people needed to get out before Christmas.
Oh dear.
You can imagine how devastating that was. And I remember I was walking around work and I was in shock. I was in shock. And people were finding out about these letters because it had got out into the news media before some people had got home from work and picked up the letters. So their friends and relatives, wherever, were phoning them up and asking them, and so, because they'd seen it on the news, and it was absolutely devastating. So they did pull back on that time frame of getting people out a little bit. But at this point in time, they were saying that there were 229 properties occupied, and which out of 750, you can see how the occupation of the estate is dwindling over the years, and they need this last push to get the last 200 or so out. So, but this frightened people, and people were immediately packing up because they thought they had to get out by Christmas. And this is not the case. This is not true. They do not have to get out. They were offering no legitimate reasons why people needed to leave, and they're not showing the surveys. But again, it's been a slow drip of trying to get more people out, and this is where the cold weather has affected people, and this is where they go down to speak to RBH and say, yes, and I'm going to leave, find me a property, and so there's more and more people moving out. And we've got one block where there is only 7 residents. And just over a week ago, that block was evacuated because there was a leak. Now, they've been out of the flat over a week, and they're telling these people, they're in a hotel, a nice hotel, don't get me wrong, it's a lovely hotel, but it's not your home, and you can't do in the things that you would be doing every day in your home, and it's disrupting people's lives. And one of these people is almost 91 years old, that is currently out of their home. And they're talking that they've got these hotel rooms booked until the 24th of March, potentially, if they use that. That's a long time to keep people out of their homes. So we're incredibly worried and concerned about these 7 people who are currently displaced from their homes. Are they going to get back in their homes? And this is another worry. And if they're not allowed back in their homes to live, that's one block completely empty. So then just the other 6, which are, some blocks have got more people in than others, but it must be about, 200 people now on the estate. So it's really worrying, it's really concerning. It affects people's health and well-being. I know it's affecting my health and well-being, both physically and mentally, emotionally. It's just a really difficult situation to be in. So there's a general push at the moment, and in terms of the task force, when RBH sent these letters out, they had a task force meeting planned for the 5th of November, and these letters landed late October. They didn't say anything to anybody from the task force. They didn't say anything to Mayor Burnham about anything. Nobody in the task force knew that they'd sent these letters out telling people that they had to be out by Christmas. And all this kind of coincides. the letters going out in late October, in between the letters going out and the task force meeting was the launch of Awaab's law on the 27th of October. That came into effect, which is going to put a lot of pressure on housing associations now having to respond to these criteria for assessing and dealing with damp and mould. It's more pressure, it's more work for them. And I think we are, in some respects, collateral damage with that as well. I think that's another aspect of it, that, you know, if we could get this college bank out of our hair, you know, life would be better for us. No. But we're not going away. Great.
And what social media platforms do you have if someone wants to contact you?
Yeah, we're on both X, I try not to call it Twitter. We're on both X and Blue Sky, and it's both at Save7Sis. That's Save 7, number 7, Sis. Yeah. And we're on Facebook, which is at College Bank. Thank you
so much, Emma.
Thank you.